Welcome back to Open Line. Councilman at Large Charlie Tygard is here. We're talking about the Sounds Ballpark. We learned last week $10 million over budget. We just heard Rich Riebling make that announcement and kind of explain why to the Sports Authority. You watched that. We had 8 minutes up there. What did you think?
Ben, I jotted down a couple just things. The phrase that Rich used, and Rich is a friend. I respect him. I think he's got his handle on this, but helter-skelter pace. You know, to me is an admission that the project went ahead way too fast without enough thought and study to you don't plan an opening day without contingencies for snow and rain and ice and bad weather. You simply don't, or you shouldn't. No one would build their house under that type of schedule that I have to be here. You know, at least in my house, I can go to the Motel 6 and stay for another night or two. We don't have that obligation. Or overtime. We're working 7 days a week. When I came in over here, I drove by the stadium, the gates open, trucks are buzzing, and guess what? Those guys that are working there are not working regular pay. It's on taxpayer dime of overtime. And then the other thing was, one of the extra costs was the building boom caused an increase in contractor price. Well, the building boom's been going on 3 or 4 years. We knew that on the front end. So those are the type issues that bother me as a council member that, you know, I guess has a reputation for stewardship of taxpayer money, and this is unnecessary payment of taxpayer money when it shouldn't have been that way.
So if we had had more time to study it, which was what you were saying you wanted, what would that have meant? Could some of this, in your view, been avoided? Would you perhaps
we wouldn't have had 90% of the soil that had to be remediated in a special way. Perhaps we would have realized that there was a natural gas pipeline or Piedmont gas line under the property that no one seemed to know about, including Piedmont. It wasn't on any state maps, but you know, we chose not to get I'm not sure that I'm using the right term, title insurance on the survey that would have disclosed this type of thing, and if things are discovered, would have protected the taxpayer, but we chose to bypass that step for both price and time. So a lot of mistakes, and I'm just, once again, it's over and done with. We need the stadium to be successful. We need the growth in the Germantown area and Sulphurdale to be successful, but we can learn a lesson for future projects. Hey, let's do them right. Let's slow down, study, get our facts straight, come in on time and on budget. You know, heaven forbid a government project ever came in on time, on budget.
All right, several calls. Let's go to Karen. Hello, Karen.
Yes.
Hi, what's on your mind?
Hi, yes. I totally agree that it's way over budget. I mean, that's what they were saying. But the thing is, they should have known, like you was just saying, that they should have known about all of these things about the land and what was going on with it before they even purchased it. The other thing is, there's no parking. So there's going to be more, somehow, money that's going to have to go out for parking. Now, they're also saying that they're not going to be taxing the people, but where are they going to come up with the money?
All right, you're bringing up a couple of good points. I want to start with the parking, and then I'm going to get into the taxes. Rich Riebling said we're not going to have to ask taxpayers for additional funding. We'll get into that. What about the parking? The state was supposed to build a garage that's not going to be ready.
But guess what? The state is planning the garage. They're getting all their facts and figures straight before they start construction. So they weren't under the same deadline, apparently, as what we were as a city with the Sounds. So, you know, no doubt their garage will probably come in on budget. So the parking plan, there'll be a lot of shuttles around town. You park at LP Field and pay $1 or $2. Maybe the Sounds will pay for the difference. I don't know if the taxpayers are. That's a question yet to be asked here. But you may park a mile away. You park at Farmers Market and, you know, find your special cubby hole and spot, and just plan, at least initially, a longer walk to get to the stadium, more time.
And we heard Rich Riebling say at the top of that, when he was talking to the Sports Authority, we're not going to have to ask taxpayers for additional money. So in other words, there won't be a tax increase to pay for this. But what is your understanding of how it's going to be paid for, and what do you think here?
The concept of TIF money is you have a development that increases the value of property taxes. So you have a parking lot now that brings in $10,000 of revenue. You build a high-rise condo or apartment, and it now brings in $50,000 of revenue. So that increase in tax revenue now can go two places. It can go into the general fund, which means the probability of tax increases in the future to pay for government services is lessened, or it can stay in that district. So rather than divert it to general government uses, it's staying within that district to pay. So it just means property taxes generated from within this footprint will stay in that area and only that area longer, rather than going to pay for policemen and firemen and teachers.
And what do you think about that? And when you hear, do you think do we talk about that enough? I think we hear them say, well, it's going to be TIF money. A lot of people don't even know what that means. It's tax increment financing. You explained it. It's not the simplest of explanations. But what do you think when he says we don't have to go and ask, it's paid for, don't worry?
Well, TIF is a commonly used government practice. I mean, Bridgestone and Dell and every big deal that we've done has some amount of TIF. It's just a question of what if. So, let's take it forward to the Bridgestone deal. They're going to get TIF money for building this new world headquarters, which means the abatement in property taxes there gives them the incentive to build. But if cost overruns occur on that building, Bridgestone is responsible, as opposed to the city being responsible. If the city was responsible and there were cost overruns, then that period of time that the TIF gets extended is money that could have been diverted for policemen and firemen and better trash pickup and better street service and all these type of issues, but it has to stay to cover debt service. So same concept. It's not printing new money. It's taking away from other parts of town is the best way I could describe it.
It is taxpayer money.
It is taxpayer money, sure, but it's money that we wouldn't have if the project didn't get built. So it's new taxpayer money, but it potentially affects taxpayers all along. If the projects don't come in on budget, then the only way to make that up is with additional tax revenue.
Let's go to Ron. Hello, Ron.
Hello. I thank you for taking my call. I'm a retired general contractor. I built a lot of buildings in Nashville, probably millions of dollars worth of buildings, built a number of them out around that area, and was very much familiar with the underground out there, with the cinders and the artifacts. Nashville's where Nashville because of that area. The Sulphur Dale, the Sulphur Springs, and all that region, it is what it is because of that. The reason the Indians were here and everything. The point is, I sent the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee, Carl Dean. I sent the governor of the state of Tennessee emails telling them what was underground in that area, what they were going to hit, and they were going to have cost overrun after cost overrun. Just enough, to that alone is enough to cause a horrific increase in cost. Every building I built in that region, and I built several in excess of $500,000, that always have problems below grade. They knew it. They can't say they didn't know it. If they do, they're lying. Go look up the emails. I can prove it.
All right. Thank you. What do you think about it? He says this was easily foreseeable.
Well, in a way, I agree with that because, we all knew what Sulphur Dale was. I'm a Nashville native. I remember being on that field, the old Sulphur Dale, as a kid, and we knew the Salt Lick and all the history behind that project. But, this whole area, we're not far from it here, is prone to flooding. It's low-lying. We know the infrastructure. The funniest one to me was we didn't understand the pipes were 100 years old and needed to be replaced. That's just beyond. I mean, someone shouldn't have even opened their mouth and said that type thing. We just didn't do our due diligence and homework up front.
I think it's possible that there was a great desire to locate this ballpark in this historic area, and they thought that it would help rejuvenate this area. And part of their argument is, well, lo and behold, there are a lot of new businesses and buildings coming in as a result of this ballpark. And so they wanted to build it here. It would have taken a lot for them not to.
Correct.
knowing what you know now, would it be enough to not build here?
No, I think, you know, if you look at the alternatives, I don't think we did a good enough job in looking at alternatives. For instance, a point that was made repeatedly but never got really an answer. If Nashville ever grows to the point of, you know, the Nashville that I grew up in, I would have never believed we would have pro football and pro hockey here. Never in the wildest expectation, you know. But now I can see some point in the future that we would have pro baseball here. So the question became, should we build the stadium in a location or have enough land around it that it could grow to major league proportions, or are we going to go through this in some undetermined period of time, 5, 10, 20 years, whenever Nashville has its pro baseball team? We're going to be having the discussion about building a new stadium because we didn't build in a location that is expandable. And it should have at least been on the table to talk about that and weigh the pros and cons of the future versus the immediate present. No doubt the jump start of the economy in the Germantown, Salem town area has been good. You're seeing new restaurants, you're seeing revitalization, you're seeing new sidewalks outside, new roads built, and it's going to be very nice. And you see a lot of high rises and a lot of people living in the area that was almost slums at one point. So there is a revitalization, and the ballpark is partially responsible. I'm not sure. A lot of this was going on before the ballpark was ever announced, so I don't think you can say 100%.
And then before I break, and then we're going to take some more calls when I come back, do you attribute, well, and you kind of answered that. Rich Riebling certainly pointed to that new construction. Do you attribute all of that just to the ballpark?
No, but I think it will help. I mean, there is some allure to living near and looking out your window at the ballpark and the lights and being part of, you know, it's sort of like living around Wrigley Field or Fenway Park. I mean, it's a lifestyle that certain people will like to have, and this could be that type of lifestyle. But you know, once again, areas of town that, you know, there's a bunch of areas of Nashville that are hot now, and, you know, 12 South and the Gulch and, you know, places, Sylvan Park, that the nations that you would have never expected years ago that there would be such a demand for housing in those areas. So this area will grow, but you know, once again, our topic tonight is, did it grow at a pace that the taxpayers could afford?
Right. Okay, we're going to take a break. If you're on the line, Philip, others, hold on. We will get to your call, take a break, be back right after this.